Alif Lam Mim, only 3 letters. Islamic scholars have discussed them for centuries. Great awliya like Ibn Arabi said that very special secrets are hidden here between Asr and Maghrib. There is a hidden door, and the key to that door is hidden in Surah Al-Baqarah. Inside it is Ayat al-Kursi, a verse that shakes the heavens and the earth. Inside it is Amanar Rasul, a gift from the mirage full of deep secrets. Surah Al-Baqarah is central to Islam. It carries the codes of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Life in Medina. It is powerful against magic, the evil eye, and illness. When it is recited, devils leave the house, for the one who asks Allah gives what he wills. And this surah is a great source of hope for everyone who fears the grave. You are watching. We are continuing our series on the surahs of the Quran. To not miss this series, please subscribe, leave a comment, and like the video. With your support, we can reach many more brothers and sisters. If you are ready, let's begin. As evening fell over the streets of Medina, a new voice began to rise. The Prophet was sitting with his companions reciting newly revealed verses. His voice echoed through the narrow streets of Medina. Alif Lam Mim. This was not an ordinary sound. Arabic was their language. They understood every word, every letter, and every sound went straight into their minds. But these 3 letters were different. The Jewish scholars of Medina had been teaching in synagogues for many years. For generations they had taught the Torah. Their hands were dark with ink from writing books page after page. Because of this, the Quran called them Abr, people who lived with ink. And now that unlettered prophet, a man who could not read or write, was speaking about letters. Alif Lam Mim. They were only 3 letters, but they created shock among the educated people of Medina, because there was only one way to know letters: learning to read. But these were not letters learned through worldly knowledge.
Hold fast to this
great
truth.
Secrets behind them.
Keep moving.
Spread
the harbor
the
is just ahead.
Of Medina. Wait,
we will reach the boats by dawn.
Who taught him the letters? We thought he was unlettered. He had not studied with rabbis or priests. He had received no education at all. He was untouched by schooling, like a newborn child. But now some of the Jewish scholars began to search through their old books. Maybe there was a clue there. Maybe these letters had a meaning in the Torah. Maybe a hidden code. Maybe a sign. But they found
the Quraysh have
nothing.
Outwardly
Those
accepted
letters
Islam,
stood
but
there
their hearts have not followed.
Like a door. Even today, these letters are still seen as encoded. We will soon come to the very interesting explanations of different Islamic scholars. But now let us continue the story and read the verses that come after this coded verse, so we can understand the connection between them. The Prophet continued to recite that book. There is no doubt in it. It is guidance for the mindful. It was as if Allah was saying you were curious about
my
the
life
letters.
is in
Now
danger,
let me introduce the
and I
book
have
to
nowhere
you.
else
That
to
is the book. Here there was a subtle detail. Allah did not say this book, he said that book. In Arabic, words of distance are not chosen randomly. You say this for what is near. You say that for what is far. This is not just language, it is a map of the mind. Allah drew this map from the very beginning. What you hear is near, but where it is written is far. Even though the Quran is recited here, that book is actually in law al-Mahfuz, far away, unchangeable, cannot be erased, cannot be rewritten, as if carved into stone. And at this point, the listener realizes something. This speech is not random. These words are not improved. This message is coming from somewhere. And we are only
Even
at
in
the
the
beginning.
deepest
Another
darkness, the
shockwave
light
followed.
of
The
our
Prophet
faith
did
guides
not yet
us.
have a physical book in his
Hold
hands.
fast
No one
to
had
this
ever
truth.
seen him reading anything, because he could not
Keep moving.
read. But now
The
words
harbor
were
is just
flowing
ahead.
from his lips, as
We
if
will
he
reach
were
the
reading
boats by
from an
dawn.
invisible book, and those words even the most educated people in Medina had never spoken like this. Arabs were proud of their language. They boasted about their greatest poets and most eloquent speakers. They looked down on anyone who could not speak well in any society. The question
The
who
Quraysh have
knows
outwardly
slowly
accepted
becomes
Islam,
the question
but their hearts
who
have not
rules. Whoever
followed.
controls
It
knowledge,
is a
whoever
false
controls
conversion.
meaning controls society. Until that day, the knowledge of Medina was in certain hands, the hands of rabbis and scholars. From the very first step, the Quran said the authority of this book is not in your hands. That is why the Quran did not only say the book. When it said there is no doubt in this book, it was really saying this book has the power to remove
I
doubt
ask
from
for
the
your
inside.
protection.
So who are the
My
Muttaqin
life
mentioned
is in
at the end
danger,
of the verse in the
I
sentence
have
guidance?
nowhere
As
else
for
to
the
go.
Muttaqin, when we translate it into English, it means those who protect themselves, or those who are careful and mindful. At this point, a new tension is born in the listener's heart. Am I one of the Muttaqin? Will I be able to receive something from this book? The Quran does not say something like those who are protecting themselves as a temporary action. Instead, by saying belongs to a timeless group. They existed in the past, they exist now, and they will exist in the future. This is a door of hope, because some people fall into this illness. There were good people before, there are none now. The Quran breaks this idea. On its very first page, people of taqwa will exist until the day of judgment, but taqwa here does not mean only
Even
a
in the
religious
deepest
Muslim.
darkness,
door
the light
Quran
of our
opens
faith
is wider
guides
than
us.
that, because one side of
Hold fast
taqwa
to
can
this truth.
exist even before faith. A
Keep
person
moving.
tries
The
to
harbor
protect
is just ahead.
themselves
We
from
will reach
evil,
the
stays
boats
away
by
from
dawn.
lies, avoids injustice, and their heart is still facing a clean direction. That is why the Quran in Medina does not speak only to Muslims, it also speaks to Jews and Christians, because they are listening, they understand, they are also included in this address. Everyone who comes trying to save themselves from evil, Christian, Jew, agnostic, atheist, whoever they may be, will
Quraysh have
find
outwardly
guidance in
accepted
this
Islam,
book. In
but
reality,
their hearts
the
have not followed.
door is opened
It is
for
a
all
false
of them.
conversion.
The invitation is made. Allah opened this door to the entire community of Medina and threw it to the whole world. The Prophet was still new in Medina, yet from the moment he arrived the city took on a structure it had never had before. Muslims, Jews and Arab polytheists were living
Shaykh,
together. Agreements were
I
made
ask
between
for
them.
your
An
protection.
alliance was formed to
My
defend
life
the
is in
city of
danger,
Medina together. For the
and I have
Muslims,
nowhere
this
else
was
to
a new life in Mecca. They had been a small group, oppressed, pushed out, seen as rebels or as a threat to society, but in Medina they had become a community. A great peace had entered the borders of Medina. Islam had stopped the tribal conflicts, and it was in this atmosphere that the verses of Surah Al-Baqarah began to be revealed. This surah spread across almost the entire life of the Prophet in Medina. Let us continue with verse 3. Those who believe in the unseen establish the prayer and spend from what we have provided for them. Allah defined the very first and most basic quality of the people of taqwa as belief in
They
the
abandoned the
unseen.
ways
The
of their
word Ghayb
fathers.
represents a vast world
Even in the
beyond
deepest
five
darkness,
senses, a
the
world
light
that
of our
cannot be
faith
tested
guides
in
us.
laboratories, but whose presence
fast
is deeply
to this
felt in the
truth.
heart. Angels, the hereafter, secrets
Keep moving.
revealed through
The harbor is
revelation,
just
and
ahead.
most importantly, the
We will reach
essence
the
of
boats
Allah.
by
If
dawn.
a person believes only in what they see, they are trapped inside their biological limits. But the one who believes in the unseen realizes that the visible universe is only a thin shell, and that the real truth is hidden behind this veil. Belief in the unseen is in reality a test of trust and surrender. When the first
Quraysh have
Muslims of
outwardly
Medina
accepted
walked
Islam,
toward the
but
dusty
their hearts
field
have
of
not
Badr,
followed.
or when they were
It is a
shaken by the
false
pain
conversion.
of Uhud, they felt not only the enemy in front of them, but also the unseen armies beside them, and the promised paradise ahead of them. This is not where reason ends, but where a higher reason begins. The believer does not trust their limited vision, they trust Allah's infinite knowledge, and this
Shaykh,
trust becomes the
I
strongest
ask for your protection.
armor against
My
the
life is in
uncertainties
danger,
and inner
and I
crises
have
of the
nowhere
modern
else to go.
world. But if belief in the unseen stayed only as a mental idea, it would remain nothing more than philosophy. Allah seals this
أشهد أن
abstract
لا
belief immediately
إله
with a clear
إلا
action,
الله
and they establish the prayer.
وأشهد
Notice
أن
carefully, Allah does
محمد
not say they
رسول
pray, He
الله.
says they establish the prayer. This means raising it like a structure, placing it at the center of life. Prayer is the bridge between the unseen and the visible world. A person who believes in the unseen stands before that unseen presence 5 times a day. Before finishing this verse about the unseen, it is the right moment to return to the meaning of Alif Lam Mim. Alif
They
Lam Mim.
abandoned the
What did
ways of their
Islamic scholars
fathers.
say about these letters?
Even
Great
in the
figures
deepest
such
darkness,
as Ibn
the
Arabi
light
and
of our
Imam
faith
Rabbani
guides
and many
us.
other scholars spoke about
Hold
them.
fast
There are more
to
than
this
20
truth.
interpretations, but most opinions
Keep
gather
moving.
around a
The
few main
harbor is
approaches.
just ahead.
Even though these
We
letters
will
have
reach
been
the boats
discussed
by
for
dawn.
centuries, there is no single agreed interpretation still. There are some general views. The first view, the true meaning of these letters is known only to Allah. This view has been strong since the time of the companions. Reports attributed to Abu Bakr, Umar ibn al-Khattab, and Ali ibn Abi Talib say that the Huruf
Quraysh
al-Muqattaʿat
have
should be
outwardly
accepted
accepted
without
Islam,
explanation. In
hearts
other
have not
words, they are
followed.
divine signs
It is a
whose
false
meaning is
conversion.
deliberately hidden. The second strong view, these letters point to the miraculous nature of the Quran. According to this view, letters like Alif Lam and Mim are ordinary letters used daily by the Arabs. With these Letters. The Quran makes a declaration from the very beginning. This Quran is made from the same letters you see and use every day. You know these letters, so if you are able, then produce a book like it made from these same letters. This was a direct challenge, and it still stands. The third approach says that these letters carry symbolic or sign-based meanings. Some scholars connected Alif to the oneness of Al-Lam, to the divine address, and Mim to creation. Some even said that the final Mim points to the name Muhammad. These explanations are mostly seen as Tasawwuf spiritual and Ash'ari readings. In this line, we find interpretations from figures like Ibn Arabi. Many Islamic scholars have accepted these interpretations as valid spiritual readings. The fourth view says that these letters are names or markers of surahs. Some scholars said that Alif Lam Mim is a divine sign used to distinguish surahs like Surah Al-Baqarah and Surah Al-Imran. This explanation is practical, but most scholars say it is not.
We will reach the boats by dawn.
The fifth view focuses on language and pronunciation. Reading letters one by one is not normal speech. This alone shows that from the very first verse the Quran is saying, I am not an ordinary text. This aspect is studied from the angle of eloquence and rhetoric. Why exactly 14 letters? The Huruf al-Muqattaʿat in the Quran are made up of 14 different letters.
The Quraysh have outwardly
accepted
Islam, but their hearts
Many
have not
classical
followed.
scholars say
It is
this
a false
choice
conversion.
is deliberate. First, the language angle. The Arabic alphabet has 28 letters. The disconnected letters are exactly half of that. Many scholars say this points to balance and measure. The Quran is showing that even half of the alphabet is enough to produce a miracle. The message is clear. More is not needed. This point is strongly emphasized by Fakhr al-Din al-Razi. According to him, the Quran makes its challenge using a limited set of letters on purpose. This way no one can say some letters were missing. Another striking explanation is these 14 letters cover most of the sound points in the Arabic language. Sounds from the throat, the tongue, and the lips. In other words, almost all basic human sound sources are represented. This means the Quran uses all the possibilities of the human voice and still makes it impossible to produce anything like it in the Tasawwuf tradition. This number is not taken as a fixed rule, but as a meaningful sign. For example, Ibn Arabi sees these letters as doors opening to different levels of existence.
They abandoned the ways of their fathers.
Says this is an Ish'ari
Even in the
reading.
deepest
He does not
darkness, the
say
light
this
of
is
our
the
faith
only
guides
meaning,
us.
but rather this is one
Hold
possible
fast
way
to this truth.
Read it. Why do some surahs
Keep
have
moving.
these letters
The
and
harbor
others
is
do
just
not?
ahead.
This question has been
We will
asked
reach
many
the boats
times.
by
There is
dawn.
no single answer, but there are strong explanations. First, it is important to know this: most surahs that begin with Huruf al-Muqattaʿat also begin by speaking about faith, revelation, the book, the unseen, and the speech of Allah. In other words, these letters usually appear at the beginning of surahs where the question, what is the Quran, is central. For
The
example,
Quraysh have
Surah
outwardly accepted
Al-Baqarah,
Islam,
Surah
but their hearts
Al-Imran,
have not followed.
Surah Yunus,
It
Surah
is a
Hud,
false
Surah
conversion.
Yasin. At the beginning of these surahs, the listener is shaken from the very first word. While expecting a normal address, they suddenly face letters. This creates a pause, a moment of tension, and gathers attention. Islamic Shari says at this point the Huruf al-Muqattaʿat break the listener's habit. In this way, the Quran says from the very start, do not listen to me as if I am ordinary speech. So why are they not?
My life is in
Every
danger.
surah, because the
And I have
style of
nowhere
the
else to
Quran is not one single pattern. Some surahs begin with commands, some with oaths, some with stories. The Huruf al-Muqattaʿat are one special doorway of this variety, but not every doorway belongs everywhere. Also, according to many scholars, the Huruf al-Muqattaʿat are a test. If they appeared in every surah, this test would become ordinary. Their limited number and specific placement preserve their impact and mystery, so the general understanding is this: the Huruf al-Muqattaʿat are used where they are needed for a special purpose. Where they do not appear, there is no lack. There is another wise beginning. An important point in Ibn Arabi's
They
approach
abandoned the
is
ways
this: he
of their
connects the
fathers.
letters themselves to
Even
the
in the
essence of
deepest
existence,
darkness,
but he
the
does
light
not
of our
present this
faith
as a
guides
final
us.
or binding meaning. For
Hold
example,
fast
he
to
sees
this
Alif
truth.
as a vertical line and says it can point
Keep
to
moving.
oneness, but
The
he
harbor is
immediately
just
gives
ahead.
a warning. He does
We
not
will
say
reach the
this is
boats
the
by
meaning of
dawn.
Alif. He says Alif can also be seen. Like this difference is very important. Ibn Arabi never uses the language of this is it when speaking about the Huruf al-Muqattaʿat. He uses expressions like it points to, it opens, it shows. In other words, He makes symbolic readings, but does not claim an absolute
The Quraysh have
interpretation.
outwardly
Ibn
accepted
Arabi
Islam,
also
but their
believes that
hearts
these
have not
letters
followed.
belong to a level
It
of
is a
understanding
false conversion.
specific to the Prophet. In his words, the Huruf al-Muqattaʿat are truths that were open to the Prophet but not commanded to be explained to the community. That is why they exist in the Quran, but their explanations are not given. This silence is not a weakness, it is a conscious silence.
Oh, Shaykh,
Al-Qurtubi, on the other hand,
I
takes a
ask for your
balanced
protection.
position. He reports
My
many
life
of the
is in
interpretations about the Huruf
and I have nowhere else
al-Muqattaʿat,
to
but he strongly emphasizes one thing: these letters are a means of testing. Some people quickly say they are meaningless, others go to extremes with interpretations. The correct approach is to accept that they carry wisdom, but not to go beyond proper limits. Now let us return to the verses and continue from where we left off. For a person who believes in the unseen and purifies their soul through prayer, a third step becomes unavoidable. Allah completes the unshakable foundation of the believer's character, and they spend from what we have provided for them in the date gardens of Medina. The wind was not only shaking the leaves, it was also shaking the idea of ownership. This sentence
Even in the
created
deepest
a powerful
darkness,
echo
the
in
light of our
minds
faith guides
everyone,
us.
from the merchant
Hold
in
fast to this
the
truth.
marketplace to the woman sharing a handful of
moving.
wheat in her
The
home,
harbor is
because
just
this was
ahead.
not a simple call
We will
to
reach
help
the boats
others. It
by
was
dawn.
a deep shift in how existence itself was understood. It was saying, not yours, entrusted to you. The subtle detail in the verse cuts through the desire for ownership. With a single strike, what we have provided for them, a person wants full control over what they think they earned with their own effort. They say, this is mine, I worked for it, I earned it.
The
But
Quraysh have
revelation
outwardly
steps
accepted
in
Islam,
and
but their hearts have not
reminds
followed.
them, the one who
It is
gives
a false
strength, the
conversion.
one who makes the earth grow, the one who gives intelligence, and the one who brings that wealth into your hands is Allah. You are only a distributor. The society of Medina had to feel this truth deeply, because ahead of them were great tests. Badr, Uhud, Kondak. The city had to be defended, the army had to be
Shaykh,
equipped, the hungry had to be
I
fed.
ask for
If
your
the cry of
protection,
my
Habib.
wealth rose, that
My life is
society
in
would
danger,
collapse. The word
and I
Munafiqeen
have
means to
nowhere else
open a
to go.
passage, to let something flow out. The believer is meant to be a channel, not a dam. Still water becomes dirty. Flowing water gives life-giving, is actually the most concrete test of belief in the unseen. A person who claims to believe in an unseen creator yet refuses to give from the visible wealth in their hand exposes the weakness of that claim. Satan whispers into the ear, if you give you will have less, if you give you will become poor. Allah promises the opposite, if you give you increase. That evening in the streets of Medina, people began to look at
them,
their possessions differently. The difference between the gold stored by
They
wealthy
abandoned
Jewish
the ways of
merchants
their
and the
fathers.
dates shared by Muslims
Even
was
in the
not only a
deepest
difference
darkness,
of
the
amount,
light
it was
of
a
our
difference
faith
of spirit.
guides
One
us.
searched for safety by
Hold
storing,
fast
the
to
other
this
entered
truth.
Allah's protection by sharing. After
Keep
Allah
moving.
establishes
The harbor
the
is
servant's
just ahead.
connection with himself
We will
through
reach the
prayer,
boats
vertical
by dawn.
bond. He seals the connection with society through giving. The horizontal bond, the shoulders that stood equal before Allah in prayer now supported one another through giving. And this was not limited to money, giving knowledge, giving time, giving a smile, whatever you have, taking a piece of it and adding it to the whole. Medina was no
Quraysh have
longer just a
outwardly
city,
accepted
it had
Islam,
become a
but their
living
hearts have
organism.
not followed.
Every part was programmed
It is a
to
false
nourish the other.
conversion.
This was the unique fabric of the Madani Quran, taking ideals and bringing them into the streets. But this new society needed one more essential quality. It had to respect not only the revelation given to it now, but also the great chain coming from deep history. Because
Shaykh,
Islam was not a break, it was a
I ask
powerful
for your
continuation.
protection.
How would the links
My
of that
life is
great
in
chain
danger,
come together in the next
I have
verse?
nowhere
And they
else to go.
believe in what has been sent down to you, and in what has been sent down before you, and in the hereafter they are certain. And in what was sent down before you, and in the hereafter they have firm certainty. The spirit of time and the chain of revelation on that cool star-filled night in Medina, the voice rising from Masjid and Nabawi was not speaking only to the Arabian Peninsula. It was embracing the entire ancient memory of humanity, while Allah was shaping the identity of this new community. He did not make them a rootless people. Instead, he
like
connected them
beggars.
to the most noble chain in human history. They believe in what was
They
revealed
abandoned the
before,
ways of their
and in what is
fathers.
being revealed now.
Even
this
in the
verse
deepest
had a strong
darkness, the
effect
light
on the
of our
social
faith
fabric
guides
of Medina.
us.
Think about it. On one
Hold
side were
fast
the
to
people
this
of the
truth.
book, proud of the Torah
Keep
and
moving.
the gospel.
The
in
harbor
their
is
hands,
just
they
ahead.
saw Muslims.
We will reach the boats
As
by
unlettered
dawn.
desert people with no deep revelation tradition on the other side, Muslims could have become a group focused only on what was revealed to them, but the Quran did not allow this narrow view. When defining the believer, the Quran demanded a deep intellectual and spiritual openness. A Muslim could not limit faith only to what was revealed to Muhammad.
The Quraysh have
sallallahu
outwardly
alayhi
accepted
wasallam.
Islam,
A
but their
Muslim
hearts
had to
have not
believe in
followed.
the coolness of the
It is a false
fire
conversion.
for Ibrahim in the staff of Musa that split the sea and in the breath of Isa that gave life, peace be upon them. This was a clear declaration. Islam is not a new religion, it is the final link of an eternal truth. A believer in Medina could feel themselves in the same ship as
Oh,
Noah,
Sheikh,
in the same well as Yusuf,
I ask
and
for
in
your
the same
protection.
greatness as Suleiman.
My
This
life is in
awareness
danger,
lifted the Muslim out
and
of
I have
narrow
nowhere
tribal
else to
thinking and made them an heir to a universal history. The Abr of Medina, the scholars stained with ink, had turned their books into objects
أشهد
of
أن
ownership
لا
to them.
إله
Truth
إلا
belonged
الله
only to their hands. The
وأشهد
Quran
أن
shattered this
محمد
claim. Allah
رسول
rejected
الله.
dividing revelation into competing truths. He reminded them that all revelation comes from the same source, from the same teacher, Allah. The condition, believing in what was sent down before you, gave Muslims a deep sense of respect and inclusiveness. It also became the spiritual
them,
foundation of the
walking like
famous
beggars.
Constitution of Medina that would later be formed with Jews and Christians.
abandoned the
Muslim
ways
no
of their
longer looked at the
fathers.
other as a complete
Even in the
outsider.
deepest
Instead, they
darkness,
saw
the
them
light of
as
our
someone
faith
who was
guides
once
us.
addressed by the
Hold
same
fast to
truth.
this
Even
truth.
if that truth was later changed,
moving.
and with this
The harbor
verse,
is
the
just
Quran
ahead.
placed the Muslim
We will reach
firmly
the boats
inside
by
the
dawn.
long, unbroken story of divine guidance. From today's perspective, this verse carries a very strong message, especially for our brothers and sisters who live in non-Muslim countries and share daily life with Jewish and Christian communities. It opens the doors of tolerance and dialogue wide open, because our source is the same. Distortions may have happened
The Quraysh
throughout
have outwardly
history,
accepted
but one
Islam,
thing
but
should
their hearts
never
have
be
not followed.
forgotten. The
It is a
return to
false
the essence
conversion.
is a promise made directly by Allah. The Quran never addressed them simply as disbelievers. Instead, it gave them a distinct position by calling them al-Kitab, people of the book. Because of this, we in Europe, America, Africa, and in lands where Christians live in large numbers must keep communication alive with
Oh,
them
Sheikh,
and see our roots as
I
close
ask
to one
for your
another. We should
protection.
meet on shared values.
My life
and
is in
just
danger,
like the peace
and I have nowhere
established
else
in
to
Medina, work together today for world peace. We must build an alliance of civilizations, not a clash of civilizations against
أشهد
external
أن
threats and
لا
dangers. We
إله
can stand
إلا
together and take a
الله
shared position. This has
وأشهد
happened in
أن
history, and
محمد
today, based
رسول
on verses
الله.
and hadiths, we say clearly it can and will happen again. Allah is not calling Islamic civilization to war with Christian and Jewish civilizations, but to peace and harmony. Of course, this is not unconditional. It must be built on agreeing upon basic universal human rights
Look at them,
and
walking like
freedoms, and
beggars.
reaching a balanced model like the one established in Medina, based
They
on shared
abandoned the
human
ways of their
values. And this
fathers.
wide historical vision
Even
had
in
to
the
be tied
deepest
to one
darkness,
final
the
point.
light of our
Otherwise, it would
faith
remain
guides
only
us.
historical awareness.
Hold
The verse
fast
ends
to
with
this
a striking
truth.
conclusion, and in the hereafter
Keep
they are
moving.
certain they
The
have
harbor is
absolute
just ahead.
certainty. This is the
We
breaking
will reach
point
the
of the
boats by
story. The
dawn.
word they believe is replaced here with something stronger they know with certainty, without doubt. Why? Because the hereafter is not a theory or a philosophical possibility for the believer. The hereafter is more real than the ground under their feet and the air they breathe. This was the secret behind how that small group in Medina could challenge
Quraysh
the
have
world's
outwardly
great
accepted
empires.
Islam,
A person
but
who
their
is
hearts
certain
have
at
not
the level
followed.
of yaqeen that
It
they
is a
will
false
die and be
conversion.
held accountable cannot be bought with gold nor frightened by death. Yaqeen means knowing something as if you see it with your own eyes. The strength behind the hand that held the scale honestly in the markets of Medina was that it saw the divine balance. The strength behind the knees that
Sheikh,
rose at night for prayer was
I
that they
ask for your
smelled
protection.
paradise by bringing
My
together
life
these
is in
5
danger,
qualities: belief in the
and I have
unseen
nowhere
prayer,
else to
giving belief in previous revelations, and certainty in the hereafter. Allah defined the complete human of the new world. Once this character was built, victory
أشهد أن
became
لا
inevitable. So what was the
إله
great
إلا
outcome?
الله
Waiting for those who
وأشهد
carried
أن
these
محمد
qualities, and how
رسول
deep
الله
was the darkness of those who stayed outside this path. Now let us move on to verse 5. Those are upon guidance from their Lord, and those are the ones who are successful on that misty morning in Medina just before dawn. The verses echoing in Masjid and Nabawi made the crossroads clear after listing those
like
5
beggars.
unshakable qualities: belief in the unseen, prayer, giving the chain
They
of
abandoned the
revelation, and
ways of their
certainty in the
fathers.
hereafter like beads
Even
on a
in the
string.
deepest
Allah
darkness,
announced.
the light of
The
our
result
faith
of
guides
this
us.
great character building
Hold
process,
fast to this
only they
truth.
are untrue. Guidance
Keep
from
moving.
their Lord,
The
and
harbor
only
is
they
just
are the
ahead.
ones who attain success.
We will reach the
Every
boats
word
by
in
dawn.
this sentence rose like a victory anthem in the deep beauty of Arabic. The particle Allah means being on top of something, standing firmly on a mount. Allah does not simply say they are guided. Their guidance is like a strong ride beneath them. The storms of life, the sound of swords at battle, or the temptations of the markets of Medina cannot throw
The
them
Quraysh
off.
have
They are
outwardly
on.
accepted
Guidance,
Islam,
their
but their hearts have
direction
not
is
followed.
clear, their speed
It is a false
is steady
conversion.
and control is in their hands, and this guidance comes from Rabbi Him, their Lord. This word whispers belonging and protection. They are not abandoned. With every step they are under the care of the owner of the universe. So who are the successful ones? The word comes from fellow, which means a farmer breaking the soil